No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve post-game show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba. And for all those joining us live, wherever you are in the interweb, good evening to you and welcome to the Illegal Curve post-game show. I'm your host for the evening, Dave Manouk, joined by my main man, Ezzy Ginsburg. And of course, there was a win for a Manitoba-based team in Ontario tonight. And we're here, of course, to talk about the Moose victory over Belleville at 3-2 in overtime. Kidding. We will get to that, as both Manitoba teams, the NHL and the AHL team, were victorious. But of course, this show, as is the Illegal Curve post-game show, which follows every Jets game. So we're here to talk, of course, about the 11th straight victory. And as I tweeted on various social media platforms, what's better than 10 wins in a row? 11 wins in a row. And when you and I started getting going in our preamble before we hit the go live button, we said, you know, without the Senators missing Brady Tkachuk and Josh Norris and Shane Pinto, they were severely hamstrung, and it did seem like this one was over once the Jets started to get rolling in that first period. But these Jets, Ezzy, they just don't seem to miss a beat. Jared Anderson-Dolan, of course, recalled. He was they didn't have an extra forward unless Morgan Barron was ready to come off IR. And because yesterday the Jets used it as a travel day rather than a practice day, it was it made sense to bring him up from the Moose and get some insurance there just in case they had an injury or they had someone that, Scott O'Neill said there were some guys who dealt with some bumps. So welcome to the Illegal Curve post-game show. Ezzy, what are your thoughts on the 11th straight win for this Winnipeg juggernaut?
It's incredible. And, not surprised at all, right? Dave, you mentioned, no Brady Tkachuk, no Shane Pinto, no Josh Norris. That's 51 goals out of your lineup right now. Right. And the Senators are not exactly an offensive juggernaut, right? So going into this game, the Senators were a big underdog. Also having lost 4 games in a row, now 5 games in a row, they are not playing their best hockey of the season. And I just thought throughout this game, you saw a disjointed team, right? Obviously, there were flashes. Obviously Thomas Chabot gets a nice goal there. I mean, Timmy Stützle was doing Timmy Stützle things. He had some scoring chances.
Including giving the puck up on the first goal.
Exactly. I mean, and you just can't make plays like that when you're a Senators team that is looking to get back into a wild card spot and is without 3 of your top players, right? Obviously, Norris and Brady Tkachuk more so than Shane Pinto. Shane Pinto is still a good player, 11 goals on the season, but specifically Tkachuk and Norris, those are just... I mean, we were talking about it, before the post-game show. I mean, that's the equivalent of losing, Scheifele Connor or Scheifele Velarde, if you want to make a comparison to the Jets, right? And I just thought the Jets controlled the pace of play for the majority of the game. Obviously, Dave, you mentioned the early goals. Like, you scored 2 goals on the first 4 shots. That's not a good recipe for success. And we'll obviously get into the second goal. We'll get into all the goals, but the second goal, I mean, for Linus Ullmark, I mean, you just can't, off of the rebound from Nino Niederreiter, you just can't, that's on Ullmark. And Ullmark was horrible in his last game, right? He let in 5 goals. I forget how many shots, but his save percentage was, I think, below 700. Yeah. So that is not good, Dave. You don't have to ask if that's good, but 11 wins in a row is good. And I mean, I just saw a confident team that went in there. They have a lot more talent than the Senators, especially, as we mentioned, those 3 players out of the lineup. But I just saw a confident group. And, we'll break down the 5-on-3 and everything like that. But I thought that could have easily been a turning point for the Senators, right? Because let's be honest here, Dave, the Jets score on that 5-on-3, the game is over if it wasn't already, right?
Right.
You're up 2 goals on the Senators. We know that Connor Hellebuyck rarely allows more than 2 goals, let alone 3 goals. So the Senators were already on their heels, but obviously that was a big penalty kill for them, the 5-on-3. But the Jets stuck with it, and I just thought they imposed their will all night long. The Scheifele line was excellent. I really liked the Lowry line. Obviously, we'll get into the fights. That was what you call a technical knockout by Adam Lowry over Tyler Clevin. He wasn't messing around.
Knocked him. You're right. It knocked him out of the game. As a good point.
Well, it was. I mean, look. I mean, Adam Lowry. Not many people get the best of Adam Lowry, and obviously, there was some rough stuff there, and we shouldn't be surprised, even with Brady Tkachuk out of the lineup. I believe Tkachuk is second in the NHL right now in penalty minutes. That's a pretty scrappy team. Guys like Ridley Gregg, Artem Zub. I mean, they've got guys that can mix it up. But yeah, I mean, just a very kind of matter of fact game from the Jets. It almost looked easy for the Jets at times, and I think it's a sign of a very confident, consistent team who, despite the fact that they didn't necessarily play their best period in the first opening period, they still had the 2-0 lead, right? So, it was a team effort, and, they got it done on special teams, even though they didn't score in the power play, but they got it done on the PK. And, now they move on to Nashville with the chance to make it 12 in a row.
And it has the other thing that's worth considering for sure is the fact that this was a desperate Ottawa team. This was an Ottawa team that, as of last night, were in the playoffs, not by a lot. They weren't only by 1 point over Columbus, but at the end of the day, they were a playoff team. And you mentioned it, and it was one of the things I mentioned in the pregame report today, was the fact that the Senators, had lost 4 in a row. And you're right, you can't undersell the impact of those guys being out of the game, out of the lineup. But look, this is a team that was expecting Ullmark to be a difference maker for them in net. He's got 12 wins. Connor Hellebuck has 36. Now, of course, I'm not comparing Connor Hellebuck to Ullmark, but I'm just saying that, it's an interesting, they're kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team a little bit, because they're, even though, like I said, they're on the bubble in terms of the playoffs now, further behind. If I don't know. I don't think Columbus, there are only 3 games tonight, including this one. So I believe, and Columbus played last night, like I said, doing the Jets a favor, by the way. I think, was that last night when they beat Dallas? I think they beat Dallas 6-4 last night. So,
yeah.
That allowed them to leapfrog Ottawa, which is why this game was so important, why the Senators were motivated to not allow this to become 5 games in a row with a loss. And it was, like you said, Azzy, when you miss that kind of talent from your lineup, 51 goals, it's going to be an uphill climb. But you're right. The Jets didn't need to play their A game, or probably even their B game, and they were going to be able to beat the Senators. But I thought they treated them with respect, and it was a I wouldn't say a totally even game, but I just thought that it was a well-played road game by Winnipeg. I thought, Lowry was kind of imposing his will physically, and as a result, they really had control in that hockey game from my perspective for most of that hockey game.
Right, and now I see our boy Dom Zappi is now talking about the Shen brothers after they were brought up during the broadcast. It's like, last week it was Brock Nelson or Jared McCann, and then now it's kind of switched over to Braden Shen, and I guess who else is kind of in the conversation. There was a lot of talk of Scott Lawton on the Philadelphia Flyers, right, Dave? So just keeping an eye on the chat. We got a lot of talk about who the Jets may acquire with just over a week to go before the trade deadline. But
I'm just quick. I'm on record. I don't think, again, unless they're moving out a player, I don't think the Jets make any moves until the deadline, because I don't think that they want to have to put someone on waivers and lose them, i.e. Hayden Fleury, realistically. So, people could say I'm wrong, which I could be. But again, I think if they move a player out, I don't see the Jets putting someone on waivers to acquire.
Yeah, and it's hard to say right now, right, Dave, because we don't know if the Jets are targeted in on a certain player, and
right.
Maybe there's negotiations going on right now. It's tough to tell this time of year. It would definitely be different than last year, when obviously, the Jets got their trading going early, acquiring Sean Monahan and Tyler Toffoli, right? And then obviously Colin Miller was at the deadline. But you could be right, Dave. I think the logic definitely makes sense to me, and I guess that's why it's logic. But I think it's hard to say, look, I'm not Braden Shen. I think his best years are behind him. I'm a big Braden Shen, good Saskatchewan boy. I think he would be a good acquisition for a team. I just don't know if he moves the needle for a second line forward. That's all I would say about Braden Shen. Luke Shen, I think, could be a good third pairing option for the Jets. But look, there's a lot of reasons why. Make an argument why the Jets should be augmenting their lineup. But the way they're playing now, Dave, 11 wins in a row, I could definitely hear an argument that the Jets should just be tinkering and maybe not making a massive splash. And again, I'm not saying that, one train of thought is necessarily better than the other, but right now the Jets are, with the exception of Morgan Barron, they're healthy right now. And Nemesnikov, Perfetti, and Ehlers, you just can't ignore how they're playing at 5-on-5, right?
No question,
because earlier this season, they were in a big funk and they couldn't get it together. And now you're seeing these guys feeding off of each other and complementing each other. And again, just for the record, I'm not saying that I don't think that the Jets should acquire a second line center. All I'm saying is right now, that second line is playing pretty well. So, you wonder what'll happen, but, I definitely wouldn't bet against Chevy making moves in the next week.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is just get Ryan O'Reilly, second line center, fill it up, and then and then move Nemesnikov to fourth line, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, Ryan O'Reilly, Brian Dumoulin, bring some Stanley Cup experience. There's a lot of good players out there. We talked about Mario Ferraro, left side defenseman. He could be an option for the Jets.
Tico Napoli wants Jared McCann.
Well, Jared McCann's a good hockey player, right? And I think Jared McCann, for me, look, again, I'm getting a little bit off track here, and I think we should get back to tonight's game between the Jets and Sens.
Yep.
But Jared McCann, to me, moves the needle more. I just don't think Braden Shen, at this point in his career, brings enough offense, whereas Jared McCann, I think, can.
Yeah.
Look, maybe the Jets, maybe we're going to see a McCann-Alexiak package deal from the Kraken. I have no idea. I really don't, Dave. It's tough to say. I've said this all along to you and to Drew and on the show. I think it could be a player that we haven't been talking about at all. It could be a la Paul Stastny in 2018, right? But it's definitely an exciting time of year to discuss all of the different possibilities and players that are out there right now.
For sure. And look, at the end of the day, this is the post-game show. This is not our Saturday show. It's not a special edition show where we're breaking down a trade that the Winnipeg Jets have made. So let's focus on the 4-1 win. Although, Ezzy, one of the things we're going to have to talk about, and I saw it in the comment, sorry, I didn't see who said it, Ezzy, but, they did make the observation. I was thinking about it earlier. Jets power play, though. Ooh, it's finding a bad time to go cold. That's not so good. Everybody's writing about how historic it is. And I think 0 for 4 tonight. 0 for 2.
I think it's at 31%. That's terrible.
I was going to say they were at 33, 34. So if we have to complain about something, I guess we can complain about that one thing.
Yeah. Well, look,
I'm kidding, of course, to be clear. I know, but the folks in the podcast are going to listen after. Just to be clear, there's a smile on my face. I'm trying to inflect some humor into this post-game show.
Yeah, I think most people are picking up what you're throwing down, Dave.
There we go.
There's no doubt that, look, and it was kind of funny too. Was that the first Jets power play or the second Jets power play? The first unit was out there for the full 2 minutes.
Oh, I know.
Right? And they had the control of the puck and they were zipping the puck around. I just thought it was a kind of a situation where it was just a little bit too stagnant. And there was a point where Gabe Velarde, I thought, to the side of the net of Linus Ullmark, could have just stuffed the puck in and shot it, but he was looking for Kyle Connor, which obviously, a lot of the time they are looking to Connor for the shot, but it just wasn't as effective as we've seen it in the past. But I don't think it's anything to be too worried about. Obviously, the most important thing here is that, the Jets were the much better team at 5-on-5, maybe with the exception of the first period. I didn't think the first period was fantastic. It was okay.
Yeah.
But I think as that game progressed, at times the Jets just controlled the middle of the ice and they just weren't allowing Ottawa to really do anything. And to me, tonight was just the skill took over. The Jets are a much more organized team, just a team that had a game plan and they executed it. You think, tonight's game, we talked about it, the Senators having lost 4 games in a row, Allmark coming off of a horrible performance against Montreal. They were motivated. And I just didn't see that urgency from, you saw it after, later in the game. But I thought, earlier in the game, there wasn't that urgency from the Senators. And, give the Jets credit. They took advantage of some Senators' mistakes earlier in the game, and they capitalized. Obviously, we already talked about the Perfetti goal, which we'll get into in the Play Now game recap. But sometimes it doesn't have to be a perfect game, and that's, I think, the sign. I've said this before. I think the sign of a great team is, you can have a bad period here, you can have a bad period there, and your big boys take care of business. And tonight they got goals from all 3 lines.
There you go. Well, let's get into it. You teased it a little bit, as it is time for the Play Now.
3 of 4 lines. Sorry, Dave, I should say.
Yeah, that's fair. Here we go.
The Play Now game recap.
Learn to bet with Play Now, Ezzy, the official betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets. Sign up and get up to $250 in bonus bets. Conditions apply. 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. Well, by the way, that was a bit of it felt like a delayed reaction because the game was supposed to start at 6:00. And as everyone knew, I was doing double duty. I had the Moose and Senators on in Belleville. I had the Jets and Senators on in Ottawa, watching my phone, watching the TV, multitasking. Lots was happening. And again, like I said, we'll get into both games. Well, we'll get into the AHL game after the commercial break, but we'll talk about both games here on
Speaking of multitasking, can we also give a shout out to Mike McIntyre for pounding out that story about Josh Morrissey? Like, I think that story was published like 20 minutes before the game started tonight. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Mike McIntyre wrote a story. Josh Morrissey was involved in a minor car crash, and he helped out a teenage girl who was a little bit frantic, and he calmed her down. So if you have a chance, if you're a Free Press subscriber, check out the story. Just a great example of how good of a human Morrissey is, right? Everybody knows that already. Yeah. He's a beauty, but that's what I'm talking about. If you have a chance, check it out. Obviously after the post-game show.
Yes, of course. Always post-game show.
It'll be in tomorrow's morning papers, guaranteed.
I was going to say, it will be in. I didn't actually. It's funny. I saw Mike tease it on his Twitter account. I have not yet had a chance to peruse it. Shout out to my sister. It was her birthday today. So we were celebrating my sister's birthday.
Happy birthday, Rach.
And so I didn't get a chance to read Mike's column, but I will read it tomorrow. And you will read it on illegalcurve.com bright and early. Those are available at 6:30 a.m.
No, I already read it.
Well, not you, Ezzy. I'm talking to the folks in the chat, the folks who are listening to the podcast. They, of course, know that because illegalcurve.com is their daily source of Jets and Moose news. But
by the way, this orange Coke is great. If anybody hasn't tried this orange cream Coke. I know you're more of a Pepsi guy, Dave.
Yeah, I'm definitely a Pepsi guy.
This is delicious. It's like a perfect combination of Coca-Cola and Orange Crush.
Okay, well, I didn't even know that existed. But regardless of that, well done for Ez for that plug, and this shout out to Coke. But because they're desperately in need of some free advertising. The Jets open the scoring, Ezzy. It is Perfetti, who has been, I highlighted the chat earlier. I highlighted the comment in the chat because he was having an up and down season, and then he made his comments, scored his hat trick, and he's got 5 goals. 7 assists in his last 10 games, including tonight's goal. And he just seems to be, playing just a more assertive game. And I don't know about you, and I don't know if you're, just even the idea of like the fact that he recognized, okay, there's an opportunity. I'm going to go to the front of the net and I'm going to, have again, we all know how cerebral he is, how smart a player he is. So of course his stick is positioned in the right spot, but he went on the original kind of quasi 2-on-1 rush with Vlad Nemesnikov, but you just recognize like he takes a bit of a he's just smart. He finds the time and space. Got to give credit to Nikolai Ehlers, his 33rd assist. He fires it, sees Perfetti is wide open, fires it over to him. And like I said, Perfetti just right place, right time, gets it over there, and the Jets have a 1-0 lead.
Yeah, and it ultimately comes down to here, like the Senators are just, it's a bad giveaway by Timmy Stützle, obviously,
Terrible.
but it's also the Senators are out of position. Like this,
Yeah.
this is just scrambling around, and like Nemesnikov started it off with some good speed into the Senators zone, and then Stützle and Travis Hamonic, he goes for skate. I thought Hamonic actually had a very good first period. I think he had 5 or 6 shot attempts and 2 or 3 shots on net. So obviously a shout out to the resident from Manitoba. So this to me is, again, when things are going well, players are finding each other, and they seem to be in the right spots. And when players get into the spots, their teammates will get them the puck. And instead of Nikolai Ehlers maybe bringing this puck into the zone, he sees that Perfetti's open and he gets it right to him. And it's an easy tap-in goal for Perfetti, right? And Linus Ullmark doesn't have much of a chance. But to me, this is just another example of, the word connected is thrown around a lot, and you hear that, but like this line really has found some chemistry, and they're finding each other on the ice, and they're producing. And that was, like you said, Dave, like you go back to December, early January, even through mid-January, and this line just wasn't getting it done at 5-on-5. So yeah, just taking advantage of a turnover, and just the Senators flying the zone. And just, again, the Senators had 7 defensemen on the ice tonight, and they needed an extra couple defensemen out there because look, I'm a big Jake Sanderson fan. You know that from watching him play at UND, son of former Hartford Whaler Jeff Sanderson, obviously. Thomas Chabot's obviously an excellent defenseman. Like, I think the Senators team is still pretty good, even despite these injuries. I think the Senators put up a good fight tonight. I just thought that they were like kind of discombobulated, and they were making too many turnovers, and obviously the Jets made them pay for this one.
Well, and further to the point you're making, and this is not, I haven't looked because of course of just getting into it, so I haven't had a chance to break down all the numbers, but this was what these guys did. And you could have read this, of course, Ezzy, if you were reading Connor Harabchak's Next Day Thoughts, which are available after every single Jets game on a little site called illegalcurve.com. But speaking of that line of Perfetti, Nemesnikov, and Ehlers, and 5-on-5 specifically, in 11 minutes and 4 seconds of 5-on-5, the Jets led in shots on goal 7-0 in their minutes. The scoring chances 7-2, high danger chances 6-1, and shot attempts 16-4. Now I know I'm talking about a game against San Jose versus the game against Ottawa. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to look at their numbers now, but it's just confirming what we're seeing. And that's not just, and again, this isn't a one game off and we're like, okay, it's one game against a bad team. This has been consistent. This is what this line has consistently done since they've just kind of turned the page, since they've seemed to have put it all together. And it doesn't mean that you don't have to make any changes. Maybe, I mean, again, like I said, if they don't, it's hard to argue with this Jets club right now. Like they don't seem to be a paper tiger, right? No. It doesn't seem to be, it's not a mirage. Like, again, think about, this was game 60 on the season, folks, 60. So it's not like there's a small sample size. The only sample size that's small was the Jets losing when the Jets went 3-7 during that one stretch. And I don't even think it was 3-7 through the 10. I thought it was, I thought it was 4-6, but anyway, I think it was 4-6. But the point is either 3-7 or 4-6. But the point is they had that one stretch around the 30 game mark, 20 something game mark to the 35 game mark where they
around that 6-game road trip, right?
Yeah. Where they struggled. But I mean, this is game 60 and they've won 11 in a row. And like I illustrated on Twitter last game, this Jets team, when they got to their 41st win in game 59 last year, it took them till game 66, the 17-18, the best year they've ever had when they finished with 114 points. They got to win 41 in like game 68 or 69. Now they had less regulation losses. They had more shootouts and overtime losses. That's how they accumulated a lot of points.
Can we also stop comparing this season? Not you, Dave, specifically. I mean, you're going to do it. Let's be honest. But I mean, this season.
Let's give the folks a backstory. There's nothing I love more than when I do something on Twitter and then I get a text from Ezzy saying, "Just stop." And I know it's never intense. Like he never wants me to really stop, but it's our shtick. So that's what he's talking about.
I can say just stop, but if anybody knows your slogan, it's can't stop, won't stop.
Exactly.
But when you're talking about this Jets team, I mean, it's different just based on the fact they started the season 15-1. Like that's different than last year. That's obviously different than the 2017-18 season. They didn't have this cushion, this crazy lead over most teams in the league. And that's why I think everyone gets it. This team is going to have more wins than the 2017-18 team. It's going to have more wins than obviously last year's 23-24 team. I don't know if they get to 60 wins, but I think they're going to easily get to 55 wins. Obviously, to get to 60 wins, they're going to have to win 85 to 90% of their games, right, Dave? Something ridiculous like that, because there's 22 games left.
Yeah.
And they would have to win 19 of those games. So most likely they're not going to hit 60 wins, but like I said, 55 to 57 wins, whatever they end up with, is an incredible season. That's going to go down as, one of the best regular season records in NHL history, right? Because the record is 62 wins in a season, right? So, I mean, the Jets right now are in an unbelievable position. And a win like tonight, I think, is a perfect example of, kind of was mentioned earlier. We had the comment up. It is a bit of a bizarre kind of short back-to-back where you're going Ottawa to Nashville, and then you're coming back, and then you're playing Philadelphia, and then you're going back on an Eastern road trip. So
yeah,
it's a little bit of a not as not something necessarily that we've seen yet this season. But, the Jets got it done tonight. And, on paper, they should have won this game because of the injuries to the Ottawa Senators. And I think, they took advantage of that. And like I said earlier, I know it's a cliche, but I thought that they imposed their will. They controlled the pace of play. And I thought especially there were some shifts where Scheifele, Connor, Velarde, they were dominant out there. And, this was, a 2-goal game in the in the second period and third period for a little bit, but they could have easily scored a goal or two on that 5-on-3 power play. And then this is a 5-1 game going into the third period, right? So yeah, really impressive. And hopefully they can keep it going tomorrow night.
Well, we'll find that out. Of course, we'll be doing an Illegal Curve post-game show after tomorrow night's game and a little bit later. Tomorrow's game starts, of course, at 7 o'clock because it's in Nashville back in Central Time. So that post-game show is around 9:40. So 24 hours and 20 minutes from now, we'll be hitting that go live button, most likely, unless the game goes to overtime or a shootout, then it'll be a little bit later. But every time the Jets finish a game, of course, that final buzzer, Legal Curve post-game show starts up. Ezzy Ginsburg, Dave Minuk, usually Drew Mandel as well. Make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribing to our YouTube channel so you can join us after every single game. And, of course, every Saturday morning, which we've been doing since 2009. So quite a few years of that show. As it wasn't that long before the Jets had a 2-goal lead. And it could have been – it was a little tight because the Senators had some pressure. And then Mason Appleton takes off. Not a great defensive play by the Sens. Gives Nino Niederreiter the chance. But I'm 100% on what you said during the preamble. Linus Ullmark has to have that puck. There's no excuse to not. He doesn't. Mason Appleton cleans it up. And it's funny because Mason Appleton's been the subject of some conversation. Of course, he was on pace for a record season. Slowed down a little bit. But the Jets, the Senators are pressing, which is interesting because they'd just given up the goal and just bad defense. I mean, again, and you can't entirely blame Ullmark because Amadio and I can't now the name's eluding me, whoever the other guy who's in front, they kind of allowed Appleton to just clean up the garbage and not really tilk him. And as a result, he's able to bury the puck. So the Jets have a 2-0 lead, and it's shortly after Cole Perfetti's goal. So it really gives them a little momentum. And it's a minute and 17 seconds after the Perfetti goal that Mason Appleton's 8th of the season makes it a 2-0 game for the Jets.
That qualifies as the old Dennis Bayak bang bang, I think, Dave, right? And yeah, obviously, I mean, that's killer when you're at home. And as we talked about, having lost 4 games in a row, you're missing some top players. It's killer to go down 2 goals like that early in the game, early in the first half of the first period. And the 2 defensemen, Dave, were Travis Hamonic and Nicholas Matinpalo. Matinpalo's actually been pretty impressive. He played for Team Finland at the Four Nations tournament, right? For those who weren't aware of that. And, you know, Hamonic, like you said, he comes in with a shot prior to this goal. But to me, he just kind of got out of position, right? And then Matinpalo's coming back. He pressures Appleton, and then Hamonic is late to get back. So Niederreiter has the rush, and the rebound just sits there, right? Like, it's just it's a juicy rebound that Linus Ullmark gives up, and it just is poor defending like that. You know, it's a nice rush by Nito Niederreiter, but that puck should have either been covered or it should have been cleared by Matinpalo or whoever the other forward is. Dave, I think you said it was
Amadio.
Yeah, Amadio, number 22. I'm trying to figure out here on the replay who it was, but you know, so either it's a combination of Linus Ullmark, that rebound just sits there. He's got to cover that up, put it in the corner, or somebody else on the Senators, whether it's Matinpalo or somebody had to clean up that rebound.
Yeah.
Amadio, sorry, had to clean up that rebound. So again, you know, good on the Jets. It's just like a hardworking goal, and you know, good on Appleton for jumping on that rebound. And that's what Appleton is known for. That's how he scores his goals, right? Like, Appleton isn't, you know, scoring most of his goals on breakaways, or I mean, at the odd time he'll score a goal on a breakaway or off the rush. But you know, those are the type of goals that you expect him to get around the net, rebounds, stuff like that. But again, you know, obviously Jets fans aren't going to apologize for this, but you're the Senators and you've given up 2 goals on the game's first 4 shots. It's tough to recover from something like that.
Well, and again, the mental gymnastics you're having to do in your head, because you're like you said, you're already down 2-0 to, as they said on the broadcast, a team that doesn't lose. They've lost the 1 game in overtime to the Las Vegas Golden Knights when leading after 40 minutes, right? What did they say? They were 30-0-1 this season when going into the third period with a lead. I mean, that's pretty freaking remarkable, right? I mean, the crazier stat,
you know, what's pretty remarkable is Hellebuck's record.
Yeah, well, that's true. That is true. That's why a lot of folks are saying that they think he could hit 50 this year. But, you know, the speaking of records, and I don't know if we talked about it because I don't know if it came out before we finished the last show, but I couldn't believe when I saw, and maybe I'll throw this to the folks in the chat because I'm curious what they thought. Were you shocked to see that the Jets were the first team in NHL history to tie the game in the final minute in consecutive games and win in OT?
I was surprised to see that.
Or a shootout, sorry, because they wanted obviously in a shootout, then overtime. But like, I can't believe it's never happened in NHL history. Like, I read the stat and I thought it was funny because everybody kind of ran with it. And I was like, is the source of the stat like legitimate? And they seemed like it. They were some American-based stats company, but I read that and I was like, how is that possible that's never happened in NHL history before? Seems shocking.
No, it's a good point. Yeah. And I mean, it's rare to come back when you're, especially like the way they did that, you know, not having scored any goals up until that point and absolutely being goalied by Vitek Vanacek, right? But you're right. I think it was surprising to hear that the Jets were the first team to do it like that. Yeah.
Anyways, I just thought it was curious, but as I wrote about in the pregame report, of course, available on a list called legalcurve.com, shameless plug. But, you know, one of the things I said was, I suspect that Scott Arniel, as much as he might enjoy that stat, would rather be in control of the hockey game and not chasing the hockey game. And that's what they were for most of this game. There were some fights. I don't know if do you want to talk about the fights that happened? The Logan Stanley one wasn't really a fight. It was more of a tussle than a fight. Adam Lowry, though, was a beatdown, if you will, because he was not
TKO. That was not even close.
Yeah, that's a good way of we haven't checked hockeyfights.com quite yet, but I suspect when we do, the fight will have be heavily in the favor of the captain who didn't like. Look, that's why he's in the. I mean, that's not why he's in the lineup. Obviously, he kills penalties. He provides, as Mark Scheifele said, he's got some sneaky good offense, but he's 6'5". He imposes his will. We know he likes to go up and have the tough matchups, but he's also not afraid to defend his teammates when needed.
No, absolutely. But is there not an argument to be made that Artem Zub should have got a penalty on Mark Scheifele there, right? Like that
Probably, for sure.
The puck wasn't there. I mean, at the very least, that's, I don't know if you call that kneeing or if that's tripping or interference, whatever, Dave. I think, Scheifele obviously wasn't happy. That's why Logan Stanley comes in there. I'm not really sure, like I haven't watched the replay. I'm not really sure why he got the extra couple minutes. Like it was a fight that never really started. So it was kind of a pretty big momentum swing, right? You're thinking maybe Zub got a penalty there because you saw the referees huddling up. You thought maybe the Jets were going to get the power play, and then obviously the Senators get the power play. And
2 roughing calls on Stanley in the same thing. It's very unusual.
Yeah, you just don't see that very often. Speaking of things you don't see very often,
You'd
right?
be like, okay, well, he got a roughing call, so what's the second roughing call? Isn't it all roughing?
Right, and at that point in the game, it's early in the game, and that was a big kill, and we've talked about it, right? Since January 1st, the Jets are whatever they are, 7th or 8th in the NHL in PK. That's a top 10 PK, and I thought that was. And the Senators' power play is pretty decent, actually.
11th. They were coming into the game. They were 11th overall.
Yeah, and Timmy Stützle, he is their Kyle Connor in terms of how dangerous he is as a passing option, but also a shooting option. And you could see that the power play goes through Timmy Stützle, right? And that's even with Brady Tkachuk and Josh Norris in the lineup. Stützle is who they use, like I said, kind of similar to. Like not exactly, but similar to how the Jets use Kyle Connor. And that was a big penalty kill to start the game, right? And, obviously the fight after, I mean, I like to see that type of stuff. You don't see fighting very often. But obviously, Clevin got the worst of it. But, it was a pretty decent hockey game. Let's be honest. This wasn't exactly, the most high event hockey game. And especially with, Brady Tkachuk and Josh Norris out of the lineup. The Senators were minus some firepower, but like I kind of said earlier, the Jets just, took the game that was in front of them, got out to the early 2-0 lead, obviously added to it. We'll get into that goal next, but I liked seeing that type of stuff, right? And it was almost looking like it was going to be a Canada-USA preliminary game situation where you were going to maybe have 3 fights in the first period, similar to Canada-US, but yeah, I mean, I love that stuff. And, I think it shows you that even though this team isn't necessarily full of enforcers,
right?
You've got a few guys that if needed, they can drop the gloves.
For sure. And as the chat points out, the second one was for an instigator. But I just thought, again, it's still funny because when you go to NHL.com, they list the penalties as both as roughing on Logan Stanley.
Right, but it's if it's an instigator, it's like you've instigated roughing, like because it wasn't a fight, right? So, anyways, it was the Jets killed the penalty off. That's all that matters. But it was definitely a situation where you were thinking the Jets might get the 2-minute power play, like I said, and it went the other way.
And I'll throw this to you, but also throw it to the chat. To me, I know that folks are like, oh, well, the power play's gone a little bit cold, but the power play is very good. To me, the most important thing, and it's something I have been talking about for the full season, especially when this team had the 21st ranked penalty killing units in the NHL. I kept saying, have to get close to top 10. You don't have to be top 5, but you just want this team to have a top 10 PK and be there. And as you have illustrated, they've climbed into the top 10. And to me, that is the bigger story from a special teams perspective. Because
well, now there's no real apparent weaknesses, right, Dave? Like it makes our job both easier and harder as kind of analysts and guys that cover the team, right? Because what were the areas of concern earlier in the season? The areas of concern, I should say, was the PK and the lack of production from the Nemesnikov, Perfetti, Ehlers line.
Right.
Well, we know that the Nemesnikov line is now producing offense at 5-on-5. But we also know that the Jets PK has been one of the better ones in the league over the last couple of months, right? 7th or 8th overall, whatever it is. So obviously this isn't a perfect team, but there's just not that much that isn't clicking right now.
No, and like I said, to me, you've now seemingly through game 60 resolved the two biggest issues this team was facing. Now, sure, we don't know what Kevin Cheveldayoff has cooking. He's still got 10 days or whatever it is, maybe a little bit less less than 10 days to the trade deadline. So we'll find out soon enough. But for now, we have to just go on the presumption this is the Jets team, a team that's won 11 straight. They were up 2-0 over the Senators. They could have, I think it is a good point made by you that early in the game they did kill that penalty, and Hellebuyck was good. I thought the PK played well, as we just illustrated over the last few minutes. And then 8 minutes and 4 seconds into the second period, Kyle Connor, who again has been subject of a lot of conversation after his Four Nations snub, he scored, of course, that shootout winner he scored on Saturday night against St. Louis was spectacular. But, of course, he hadn't had a goal, had some chances in the last game. But then this one, Gabe Vilardi, it really is amazing what Gabe Vilardi does. If you watch him get that puck initially to Dylan DeMello, who fires it and it goes wide, then Connor gets it back. But then Gabe Vilardi sees he's almost got a triangle of Senators around him. But he recognizes, hey, Kyle Connor's coming in. He's got nobody on him. I'm going to get it to the guy who's got 30 goals in the NHL. And oh, wait, now he's got 31 and you've got a 3-0 lead because Kyle Connor fires that puck right over to him. A great pass by Gabriel Vilardi to get it to him.
Absolutely. And Dave, if you're not going to give it to Perfetti or Appleton, I'm going to give it to Connor.
The Seagram shot of the game.
Funny that you it's funny as I was after we talked about the two goals, I was like, hey, well, I got to remember that we've got to give the Seagram shot of the game out to Kyle Connor, because it was a beautiful, it wasn't one of his nicest shots, but you know what? On this channel, you celebrate the good ones. And that was a good goal and an important goal, of course, to give the Jets really kind of solidified their hold on this game. So Seagram's 83, Manitoba's favorite Canadian whiskey. Of course, drink responsibly. Our big thanks to our friends at Seagram's for the Seagram shot of the game, which goes to Kyle Connor. No surprise, 31 goals on the season for Kyle Connor. And like I said, assist to Gabriel Vilardi, his 28th and Dylan DeMello picks up his 11th assist on the season.
And we're inching closer and closer to another 40-goal season for Kyle Connor. I think it's going to be a little bit tough. I'm not going to say it's impossible for him to hit 50. 19 goals in how many games are left now, Dave? 22 games?
22 games left
in the season. I don't think that's unrealistic. I just think, I'm going to say Connor ends up with 46.
Well, right now they've got him on 46. Oh, you said 50. I think you meant 50. You said 40.
I'm going to predict that based on Connor, I'm going to say he ends up with 46, but I'm not going to, I won't be surprised if he hits 50.
He's on pace for 42 based on extrapolation.
I think he's going to outperform that pace.
Okay. Comet for the record is thinking that it's going to be 45. Greater than or less than, as you're the
great minds think alike, Comet. 45, 46. That's essentially the same thing. But this goal wasn't the Ginsburg backbreaker, but it was obviously an insurance goal here. And like you said, Dave, we're kind of joking around not giving Perfetti the Seagram shot of the game. Like the goals tonight, they weren't like kind of the beautiful goals, but it's a sneaky, like you said, clever pass by Gabe Vilardi to Kyle Connor here. And, these are just the types of things, like, if anything, it should be the Seagram's pass of the game to Gabe Vilardi on that one. But
we'll see if our friends at Seagram's want to add a second thing is.
Yeah, we'll do it. There's enough fireball to go around for everybody, right, Dave?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just that's just in tight. Like, to me, it's good pressure. We talked about the Scheifele line. When they're at their best, they're putting pressure on the opposing team's defense. Kyle Connor chases down the puck and gets it into Gabe Vilardi, and then he returns the favor. But these are just such sneaky good plays, and it's just been so fun to watch these guys. Some nights it's Scheifele that's gaining the headlines. Sometimes it's Connor. Sometimes it's Vilardi. But really, all three of these guys from the start of the season have been excellent. So, I think they were rewarded. And let's be honest here. I mean, we can't lose touch of the fact that the Jets were dominant over the San Jose Sharks. And that line was really good. And, they could have easily had 2 or 3 goals in that game. So to me, this was just a continuation, and the Jets were getting rewarded. Like we talked about, most games you're not scoring 2 goals in the first 4 shots. And you're not, at that point, I think they probably had, something like 15 shots on goal or something like that. So most games your shooting percentage isn't that high. But I was just really impressed by, the pursuit of the puck by Kyle Connor, and then just that really nice kind of drop pass by Velarde there.
Yeah, and it looked like the game was essentially the Jets for the taking until 49 seconds later, Thomas Chabot says, "Well, we're not going to let you go home just yet with those 2 points." And your boy Tim Stützle makes up for his mistake in that first period it's just a pass that gets away from Nikolai Ehlers. I'd say Ehlers is probably a step late in getting in. If you watch the replay, which I'm doing right now as I speak to you, I don't love Ehlers' coverage because he makes the mistake in the neutral zone, doesn't get back, and then really he looks like a dancer, pirouetting around a little bit defensively, and the Jets are just a step late, and then Chabot comes in, and Hellebuck's got to take the angle as well because there's a man in front, so he's got to be worried about a rebound. But this is just a mistake, and it ends up in the back of your net. And again, you could credit Thomas Chabot. We've talked about him for years now, as he's quite a player there in Ottawa, and he makes it 3-1 for the Jets cuts the lead down to 3-1.
He's not a guy, again, this is probably recency bias because the Four Nations tournament just started, but is Thomas Chabot not a guy that's in the conversation for Team Canada at the Olympics, right? There's a lot of good defensemen. I told you, like, a guy like I think that should be getting more attention is a guy like Jacob Chychrun for Team Canada, but obviously, Thomas Harley comes in, so you got to think Harley's now going to be a guy.
Harley was amazing.
Harley was very good.
Harley was fantastic. I know I already went on a rant about Harley, but he really opened eyes. He's
a very solid defenseman, not flashy, but obviously just a well-rounded defenseman and only getting better. He's young. What is he, 23 years old, Dave? But yeah, I mean, it's Dylan DeMello's pass is it's not a great pass. Ehlers, like you said, it was at the end of the shift for the Ehlers line. Nemesnikov and Perfetti were stuck out there a little bit, and Thomas Chabot just kind of dances around Ehlers. And like you said, I mean, there weren't a lot of mistakes that were made by the Jets, and this was one of them where, it was a turnover in the neutral zone and then just not really good back checking by Ehlers, kind of simply put. And, the Ottawa Senators, at least for a little bit of time, were back in the game because obviously, we'll get into the 5-on-3 and everything like that. I mean, the Jets were all over the Senators. The puck was in the Senators zone for the majority of the second period. But obviously, that was a big goal because, like you said, it was 3-0 at that point. And so the Senators got some momentum back at that point.
Yeah. And as you alluded to in your comments just now, we're expecting there's a lot of opportunity for the Jets to add because your boy, Nicholas Mantanpalo, takes a high sticking penalty against Nino Niederreiter and also gets hit with the old broken stick penalty. And then Jake Sanderson gets the hooking penalty while they're killing the double minor against Gabriel Velarde. So the Jets really had a chance to break it open right after the goals had gone in for both the Jets, obviously for Kyle Connor and Thomas Chabot, but they were unable to do so. And we said the Sens PK played well, and the Jets had lots of opportunity as well.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if Mantanpalo doesn't know the rule because it was kind of an odd situation, right? Where his stick breaks and he went to make a play. I forget which Jets forward it was, but it was just kind of an odd sequence. Like, we were talking about this earlier. How often do you see a kind of non-fight like we saw with Logan Stanley and Artem Zub, and then you see one guy get 2 minutes kind of instigating, or he gets double roughing, but the other guy gets one roughing minor. Same thing with this. Like, you rarely see a guy get 2 penalties, one for high sticking and then one for playing with the broken stick, right? So, regardless, the Senators had a lot of zone time, and they had some chances. And we talked about it. Like, Timmy Stützle had a scoring chance that I remember. Drake Batherson had a scoring chance, but for the most part, the Jets were. I'm talking about when the Senators had the power play now. But I thought that, on this particular play, the Jets it was just one too many passes. And, I think from what I remember, they were moving the puck pretty well. And, if anything, you just like to see a little bit more of that kind of shot mentality. But, give the Senators credit. Their PK is pretty decent. And, that allowed them, they stuck in that game. If the Jets go up 3 goals, then we know, obviously, the Senators aren't coming back. But what the Senators did by killing off that 5-on-3 was just allowing themselves, to, and again, Jake Sanderson, obviously, we should mention, he was fantastic in this game. He's a really good player. And that's the thing, right? Like,
remember, there's a lot of talk as when he was in his draft here, even though I think he went 5th overall to 5th or 6th. I think 5th, right? But
sounds right. Yeah.
The Montana product was heavily coveted by Winnipeg. Folks will remember.
No, absolutely. And, Sanderson, again, he's still, in his early 20s. He's only going to get better.
Yeah.
But he's just got all the tools. He's obviously got the pedigree, right? But, that could have been a turning point if you're the Senators, that they could have scored after that, they had some decent chances. But, for the most part, I thought that this was, again, the Jets made sure that they kept most of the pucks to the outside. There weren't a lot of second chances. Like, the Jets played their structure. They played a solid game tonight. And they didn't allow a lot of odd man rushes. I can't remember any odd man rushes off the top of my head. Maybe someone will correct me, but for the most part, the Jets kind of shut it down. Kind of towards the end of the second period into the third period. They didn't allow the Senators to have much. And
as the key is, I mean, they don't need to, and I'm not suggesting that Connor Hellebuck plays tomorrow, so don't anyone jump down my throat for making this comment. But I mean, they gave up a total of 13 shots in the final 40 minutes of that game. So you talk about control, and obviously the benefit of having a 5-on-3. Oh, you're still muted.
Sorry, I'm muted, Dave. Sorry, I just checked. The Senators had 3 high danger chances in the second and third period.
Right. No, and that's
right?
the point.
So that's just like I'm saying, like they shut it down, and that's something that I think, is you talk about Hellebuck's goaltending, obviously, which deserves a lot. Like, he's the best goalie in the world. He absolutely is in the Hart Trophy conversation, if not the Hart Trophy favorite right now. And obviously, Scheifele, Connor, Velarde having great years, Ehlers, like, there's no Morrissey, there's no shortage of guys, but the Jets' ability to lock down a lead, I mean, it's surgical at this point. They've done this how many times this year to teams where, they get a 2-goal lead and they just go into lockdown mode and they don't give the teams anything to gain momentum off of.
Well, and that's the point that you just made, and obviously, because you just finished saying it, and one I made. And look, they outshot them 18 to, it was 12 all in shots after the first, 18-11 in favor of Winnipeg. And again, not surprising. And then the craziest part is, if you look at the third period where Ottawa's down 3-1. So you think, okay, they're going to press, they're going to try and get into it. And again, I will acknowledge missing the firepower they were missing, not insignificant, but the Jets outshot them 9-2. And like I said, I don't think it was a ton of high danger chances. I think it was 8 all out, 5-on-5 between both teams. At least that's what Natural Stat Trick had today as. But for me, that's the key. Like you just said, they locked it down. They didn't give up the puck. They had possession of the puck. Again, I don't know what the final numbers have looked at because I haven't had a chance to look at them. I will admit, I was watching the Moose game in addition to watching the Jets game.
Shout out to Dom Toninato. I know we're going to do the Manuk Moose Minute a little bit later, but you love to see that. I mean, a guy that got a little bit of action in the NHL this year, right?
Yeah.
And it's been, let's be honest, it's been a tough year. So, like, give the Moose credit here. What are they, 3-1 now on the road trip, Dave?
Yep, 3-1.
4-1, 3-1.
Nope, 3-1.
So look, these guys have pride. Like they're not going to throw in the towel. They might be last in the division, but they're still competing. And, they obviously are benefiting from having a guy like Dylan Coughlin on the back end.
Yep.
And, nice to see Thomas Milic get his first win in the AHL in a long time, right?
Yep.
So, look, let's be honest. Like, it's nice to see the Moose having some success because it's been a tough year.
Well, and it's interesting because the loss of or not having Tkachuk, Norris, and Pinto in the lineup, there were 2 recalls up from Belleville that impacted the Moose, of course, because they didn't have those guys. Yeah, the guys like
Angus Crookshank.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there, what's his name? There was one other guy. I can't remember who the other recall was. I've got it in the pregame report. But the point I'm making is that they
Yannick.
Yes, that's what it was. So look, it's the Jets lock it down. We don't need to really break down the 4th goal of the game for Winnipeg, but
Scheifele's only 49 behind Ducky now.
I was gonna say, that is the keys. Now 49 behind Dale Howard-Chuck. Interesting column. I think it was who was it? Maybe it was Paul Friesen in the Winnipeg Sun wrote about the records and which records. And I'm not going to go on a rant right now, but I said, look, if you're a Jets fan of a certain age, a certain vintage, then your memories are of Dale and Teppo and Timu and Alexi and no question Thomas Steen and that Freddie Olesen and Dave Babich and those are the guys that people in the city. Now again, I will be clear, I don't dump on Atlanta because there are folks from Atlanta who if anybody's in Winnipeg, people could say I don't care about Atlanta, but just remember, you once experienced this. You were once those people that folks in Phoenix said, I don't care about Winnipeg. And that sucked. So you don't, I don't dump on it. You don't celebrate it to the same degree. So and again, Mark Scheifele recognized it. He said, I'm chasing Dale Howard-Chuck. So everybody in this city or this province or who follows this team or follows the 1.0, they know what the true history is, but the NHL still hasn't connected it.
And it's not a question of we have lots of love for Atlanta. I mean, we've always shown love to Atlanta. It's just that's not really the franchise record. And like you said, Mark Scheifele said it himself, right? It's not Ilya Kovalchuk's record that he was chasing. It's Dale Howard-Chuck's record that he's chasing. And that's what it ultimately comes down to. So yes, obviously, the Jets relocated from Atlanta.
Yeah. You just don't dump.
Folks around these parts are concerned about what the Jets 1.0 did and what the Jets 2.0
Hey,
did.
I'm constantly mentioning Dougie Smale, especially during Movember when Kyle Connor grows a mustache and they basically look like identical twins. So that we here on this channel, we tend to focus on globally. We do everything to just keep everybody happy. We're all about.
I think your bro Dan is pointing out that we didn't give a shout out to Alexei Zamov.
I did. I said Alexei.
Oh, did you say Zamov?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That 5-goal game against LA was one of the best.
Amazing. Just amazing. That was unbelievable. 15,000 people went to see it, even though I think it was in LA. But anyways, anywho, we've distracted ourselves as we usually do here on the Illegal Curve post-game show, which we do after every single Jets game. And every Saturday, of course, is the Illegal Curve hockey show. Make sure you're subscribing to this channel. Make sure you are smashing that like button. That helps us with the algorithm. And Ezzy's dad, John Ginsberg, retired professor, math professor from the University of Winnipeg, he's still trying to explain to Ezzy and I what an algorithm is. And once he does, we'll hopefully understand it. But ultimately, when you smash that like button, it helps with the algorithm.
Hey, let me tell you, my dad could explain to me what an algorithm is over and over again for 100 hours, and I still won't understand it. But yeah, regardless, we want you to help the algorithm by subscribing and liking. And I was going to say, Dave, we have a lot of shows coming up. 4 more shows coming up. 3 more shows, not 4 more shows. 4 shows total this week. But we obviously have the post-game show tomorrow, Saturday morning show, the staple marquee show of Illegal Curve. And then obviously the Jets and Philly coming up on Saturday night. The Jets have Philly coming up twice in 6 days.
Yep. And that's a weird one because, of course, that's a Boston Pizza show, that Philly game in Philly.
A road game, yeah.
It's a Thursday night game. It is on March 6th. And then, of course, March 7th is the trade deadline when the Jets are also in action. So that you want to talk about packed shows, we've got another back-to-back coming to you folks next week where the Jets play in Philadelphia the day before the trade deadline. Then they're in New Jersey for a game against the Devils on the or after the trade deadline. But the like Chevy and company are staying in Philly, so they'll be staying in Philly during trade deadline day. Of course, we'll be bringing you all the action on a little site called legalcurve.com, but it will be...
Maybe we'll send our boy Philly Dan to the Jets headquarters to give us a little report of what's going on. But
I like it.
Obviously, yeah, there's a lot of games coming up on the East Coast for the Jets, like you said. Yep. Flyers, Devils, who else do they have in there? The Islanders.
Yep.
I'm forgetting somebody else in there. But I mean, this is crunch time. I mean, even though the Jets have won 11 games in a row, they're going to keep going. They're going to go for 12. They're going to go for 13, 14. I mean, they want not only first into the division, we know they want first in the West and possibly a President's Trophy. Something, speaking of Jets 1.0 and 2.0, has never been done.
There you go. Well, Mark Scheifele, he gets his 33rd goal of the season into the empty net, as he said, 49 away from eclipsing Dale Howardchuk's record, 50 from becoming the all-time highest goal-scoring forward wearing a Winnipeg NHL jersey in this city's history. Kyle Connor, he gets his 42nd assist. The Jets win 4-1, their 42nd win of the season. They outshoot the Senators 39-25. The Jets next in action tomorrow, where they'll head to Nashville and take on a Predators team. I believe the Predators lost their last game. The Predators are woeful. They made a minor league deal today, I think, as with Tampa. So I believe they augmented their Admirals lineup, although he may have stayed with Nashville, actually, now that I think about it, but it was not a significant trade that went down a couple of hours ago. And of course, we'll come to you live less than 24 hours from now. But hey, we've still got more show to go. We've got to go to our commercial break. And then when we come back from our commercial break, we're gonna share some more thoughts about maybe the Jets, for sure about the Moose, and whatever else catches mine and Ezzy's fancy for the remainder of the time we are bringing you this show. Okay, well, let's head to commercial break, Ez, and then we'll be back. This is, of course, the Illegal Curve postgame show.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumor's incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve post-game show. I'm Dave Minuk. He's Ezzy Ginsburg, and we are concluded as discussing the Jets' 4-1 win, their 11th straight victory. And speaking of 11 straight victories, as per NHL public relations, the Jets skated to their 11th straight victory to extend their lead atop the NHL standings, which everyone knew. The Jets joined the Oilers 16 games in 23-24. The Canadians, who've done it three times, one 12-game win streak, two 11-game win streaks, and the Senators, who had an 11-game win streak in 2009 to 2010, they become the fourth Canadian team to record a win streak of 12 or more games. So the Jets joining some big company, especially the Montreal ones and the Edmonton one. They wouldn't mind being able to at least get to the Stanley Cup Finals like the Oilers did last year. I know they'd like to get a little further than that, of course, and we'll see what happens and what moves they make towards that. But just some final thoughts on the Jets and their win and heading off to Nashville. Seems like Morgan Baronesi not quite ready. And again, I didn't really see if Mike McIntyre mentioned it or if Scott O'Neill said anything. I haven't had a chance to listen to it, but like I said, they recalled Jared Anderson-Dolan, so he'll be with them to go to Nashville. We'll see.
I also thought it was funny, and I'm sure you were seeing a lot of this on social media when you reported that Jared Anderson-Dolan had been recalled by the Jets. A lot of people were thinking that there might be a trade that was imminent, right? Because we're obviously at that point in the season where, trades are happening, right? But obviously it was just insurance, right? To have an extra forward because the Jets didn't have an extra forward currently up with the team, right? So it's just insurance. If, God forbid somebody was injured in this game, then Jared Anderson-Dolan would be good to play against Nashville, right? But like you said, Dave, when Morgan Barron gets back into the lineup, that obviously, most likely means a guy like David Gustafsson is going to be the odd man out. And we didn't mention this. Gustafsson had a pretty good scoring chance off the rush. Can't remember if that was in the first period or the second period, but Gustafsson, has quietly been impressive. I think not necessarily, putting up the big offensive numbers, but that's not his game. Just playing, really solid along with Rasmus Kaparia and Al Iafallo, right? So just wanted to get that in there that I think, Gustafsson, we expect to go back to kind of being that 13th forward. But I've been really impressed with his play. I think he's quietly just done a really nice job.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's fair. And you're right. Look, the best thing for this team is to be healthy. And that's what you want is, you've had your injuries, some substantial ones to some big players, something they avoided, especially on the back end last year. But, and look, anything can happen, but ultimately, like they've started to get a little bit healthier, which is a good thing. And we'll find out tomorrow with Morgan Barron, because Scott O'Neill did list Morgan Barron as a potential to return to the lineup on the road trip. Now I don't know the nature of the skating this morning, if it was an optional, I would imagine it wasn't an optional because of the fact that they didn't skate yesterday. So they wouldn't have had an optional today, but they of course won't skate tomorrow. So if Morgan Barron wasn't ready to go, and they're not ready to take him off IR, then it seems unlikely that he plays tomorrow. Maybe he plays against the Flyers here on Saturday night. Should be a fun one. Saturday night hockey is always fun when the Jets are in town. There's another team, though, Ezzy, in this market that was also in action. And I love when we get the symmetry between the NHL and AHL teams to have both the clubs going against each other. And if they're both on the road, especially given the distance between Belleville and Ottawa, I believe is about a 2.5 hour, 3 hour drive. So that is where the Manitoba Moose found themselves this evening after a pair of games in Laval and then winning in overtime on, I've lost days as I don't even remember what day it is today, but when the Moose beat the Toronto Marlies the other day, 2-1 in overtime. So they found themselves in Belleville, which is where we pick up.
Put on your antlers. It's time for the Minuk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Like, Dave, I was waiting for you to hit it, but then I thought that maybe you were waiting for me to hit it.
I was.
Okay, that's what I thought. Because, there's no... Look, Dave, it's your bumper. You can obviously hit your own bumper. But I was going to hit it, but I was waiting for that kind of perfect timing to do it. But regardless, we got it in there. So
there we go. It was funny. I was watching you were watching me, and I was like, hey, is he going to hit it? Am I going to hit it? What's going on here? But ultimately, the button has been hit. The Moose Minute signal has gone on, like the bat signal. The Moose in action. Like I said, they've won. They beat Laval, the best team in the AHL. They lost to Laval, the best team in the AHL. And then they beat the Toronto Marlies, comeback win. And like I said, Dominic Toninato, the captain, he got it done to give them a 2-1 win. This one didn't start very well. A familiar name, though, as he scored a goal. Wyatt Bongiovanni. He's a great kid, really nice kid. He was a free agent signing out of college. He got his 18th goal of the season. Let me tell you.
He's having a nice year.
Yeah, the Moose would probably like to have someone who has 18 goals on the year. Nobody has that number. Wyatt Bongiovanni has 18 goals for the Senators. He buried a puck that was loose beside Thomas Milic. And as you mentioned, Ezzy, Thomas Milic, he's making his first start since January 22nd. Of course, he was sent down to the ACHL to play for Norfolk, earning Dominic DiVincentis the recall. The Moose didn't have Kaapo Kähkönen on the bench. Maybe they're giving him some time off after the being assigned from.
I was going to say, where is Kaapo Kähkönen right now?
Well, he was assigned back to the Moose, but for today's game, he was not on the roster. It was DiVincentis and Milic, which of course gives the Moose the youngest goaltending tandem in the AHL. So Wyatt Bongiovanni, he gets the goal to give the home team a 1-0 lead. But then Brad Lamberto, the 2022 first rounder, he gets in on the action. His fourth goal, just 4 goals. He's got 20 assists. So he's been piling up the assists. Just goal scoring has not been his friend this year. He's been a bit snake bit. That was his first goal. And how many games do you think want to guess? Although you might have seen my tweet, but if you didn't see my tweet, how many games had he gone without scoring a goal?
Ooh, I'm going to say 10.
25.
Ooh.
25 for Brad Lambert. He's got a great shot. Snacktoba was close. He's 23, but I believe it was 25 for Brad Lambert.
Come on, Snackatoba.
Now I will say
you're way off. I said 10.
But I will say, and again, it's worth bearing in mind, it's not just a Brad Lambert thing. It's not just him. Nobody had been scoring up until recently. Even Jared Anderson-Dolan, who just got recalled, 3 goals, 2 assists in his last 4 games, but not a lot of goal scoring before that. So Brad Lambert, tough for him. He gets one on the power play. We'll see if he's able to kind of use that to get rolling for the Moose, especially as they try and make some sort of push here late-ish in the season. But he gets them on the board, and it's a 1-1 game. Assist to Elias Salamonson, his 13th. And even though he missed a lot of time with that upper body injury, you knew that on the power play, he was feasting. And a lot of guys, especially young guys, when they get Cole Perfetti, we saw that during the COVID year. A lot of guys get, especially when they're first in the American Hockey League or transitioning to that league, they get a lot of points on the power play. The 5-on-5 points are a little bit more difficult to come by, but Brad Lambert ties it. And then, of course, late in the second period, Moose find themselves trailing 2-1. They give up a power play goal of their own, although their PK had been much better. Lots of penalties in the middle frame. And then Tyson Empey, he gets his 5th goal of the season late. 4 minutes and 35 seconds left in this hockey game with the Moose trailing. Elias Salamonson fired a shot on net. Ben King redirects it, hits the crossbar, lands, and then Empey puts it in. Now it's 2-2 and heading to overtime in OT. Shout out Thomas Milic. It wasn't quite enough of a one. I'm going to defer to T. Konopoli. So T. Konopoli, give me your assessment. I didn't want to call it a windmill save because it really wasn't like super exaggerated like this. It was more of a like this type of save. So I wouldn't call it a windmill.
What about, can you call it the claw?
Well, Tico Napoli's in the goalie fraternity, so he can let us know what exactly, and I'm sure he saw the save. If he didn't, check IC Dave on my socials. I definitely tweeted it out, but it was a game-saving save because in OT, it would have been the game winner for the Belleville Senators. He stopped it, and then shortly after he stopped it, the captain for the second straight game goes in on a kind of partial breakaway, and Elias Salamonson gets his 3rd assist of the game. So 3 assists for the 2022 second rounder. Tico Napoli is calling it the old sawmill save, so it was a sawmill save according to Tico Napoli. Thank you, Ticona, for your insight on goaltending. And Elias Salamonson, he gets his 3rd assist Dominic Toninato gets the partial break. The initial save is made. He buries his rebound. Moose win 3-2, and they've won 3 of their last 4 games. So it's just a good effort from Manitoba. And again, like I said, even if it doesn't amount to anything, it's just, you don't, like you said, these guys have pride and they don't want to just kind of stumble and bumble to the end of the year.
Absolutely. And shout out to Jacob Stoller. He put this out on social media. I think you probably saw it too, Dave.
Yep.
I think we're soon going to be on Elias Salamanch's watch in terms of late in the season. You expect him to get a game or two, obviously, to be rewarded, because I think a lot of people, ourselves included, think it's just a matter of time before he's in the NHL. He's a really solid defenseman. Like we've been talking about tonight, it hasn't been an easy year for the Moose, but he's been definitely one of the bright spots. Like you said, 3 assists tonight, and continuing his great rookie year with the Moose.
Yeah, so the Moose win. Their next game is in action. They'll have a rematch with Belleville. I don't know if it's tomorrow or Friday, I'm not going to lie to the folks. I want to say it's Friday, but it's almost like I could go to the schedule and find out, since I'm on the AHL's website.
Give me a second, Dave. I'll look it up. Let's see how quickly I can do a live.
Oh, I already found it. It's Friday at 6 o'clock Central. The Moose are going to be back in action. So the good news is for the folks,
Molasses Ginsburg was no match for you.
It's all good. Journey for Beginners. I will get a Chaz update. I will get a Parker Ford update. The problem for me was that my schedule did not work. The Moose, I literally got back to town. The Moose left town. I've been working my sources trying to get it. I was expecting it today. I will get it by tomorrow is my hope. So I will have updates on Chaz Lucius, who has missed 9 of 10 games the Moose have played in February. He's got a medical issue. I don't have any more insight than that, but I will get more. I'm pushing for it tomorrow. So hopefully I will have answers for everyone tomorrow.
So sorry, Dave, you don't have Chaz Lucius's medical charts handy?
I do not, but I will. I'm doing some digging, so I'll find out what I can get on Lucius, just because, of course, I'm
just picturing Dave at Health Sciences Center, and he's he's in the room with all the folders, all the files.
Hello, I'm Dr. Manouk. Although they think I'm my uncle, so it wouldn't work. But
That's true. Shout out to Dr. Yossel Manouk.
Yeah, but anywho. This is the key is that I'll find out from we'll try and get insight as to what's happening with Lucius, who, like I said, he's missed 9 of 10. He's played 25 games, which I know people don't think is a lot, but it's still more than he's ever played as a pro. But you still wonder what's going on in terms of the medical condition. Don't know. And of course, Parker Ford dealt with that injury that he sustained before the Moose left on this road trip. So we'll see what's up with those two guys. However, those two are absent. Jared Anderson-Dolan's absent, and yet the Moose continue to win. So good thing for the Moose that they are winning, and good thing for the Jets that they are winning. So there is a lot of joy in Joyville, Ezra Ginsburg, because the Jets and the Moose continue to win. All right, Ez, this is your opportunity for some final thoughts. A final thought from Mr. Ginsburg before we wrap up, because we're going to be back at it tomorrow, fairly shortly.
Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow after the Jets and Predators, the very odd Ottawa to Nashville trip for the Jets back-to-back. But no, I'm just enjoying this ride, Dave. Honestly, like most Jets fans, 11 wins in a row, pretty incredible, atop the entire league, and hopefully they can keep it going. It's just fun to watch this team winning in different ways, right? Scoring late goals with 30 seconds to play, winning back-to-back in the shootout and overtime. Then today was much more of I would say, a commanding win over a depleted Senators team, but just, enjoying this ride, this winning streak that the Jets are on, and they're about to be completely healthy with the return of Morgan Barron, and, kind of off the ice, just getting excited, ramping up. Obviously, we're going to have a big trade deadline preview show on this Saturday's Illegal Curve Hockey Show, working on getting some guests this weekend, working the phone lines, and kind of discussing some potential targets for the Jets. But yeah, overall things are good, and we're in the thick of the stretch drive, which is a great time of year.
There you go. Well, a big thank you to Ezzy for the final thoughts. A big thank you to all of you who make this show possible, and a big thank you to our sponsors who also make this very possible. The post-game show, the Saturday show, and of course the website, illegalcurve.com, a possibility, and they are in no particular order: Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Play Now, Holt Dental, Boston Pizza, City Place, Seagram's, and new on illegalcurve.com, Transcona Overhead Doors. So big shout out to Transcona Overhead Doors. We welcome them aboard the Illegal Curve trade. And so if you need some help with your garage door, go to Transcona Overhead Doors. And we've got all their information, illegalcurve.com. Click on the ad from there and tell them Illegal Curve sent you. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. For Ezra Ginsburg, I am Dave Minuk. We will see you guys and girls back on this show in less than 24 hours. And of course, the website, illegalcurve.com, will have all the latest Jets and Moose news, including recaps from both games tonight. Well, not yet, because I'm still going to be writing them after I hit the live button, but we'll have those live. We'll have the podcast. We'll have it all. Thanks very much for joining us this night. Guys, we will talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow @IllegalCurve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.